welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Alex King and Daniel Mangena. Today is Thursday, June the 18th, 2020. It's 4 p.m. New York time. And wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And once again, we're happy to have another guest that Daniel has brought our way. Daniel's been busy lately, bringing us all these really great people to talk to. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to work out as kind of a segue to our Tuesday guest, because Daniel kind of hinted on Tuesday. This is a good segue. So his name is Paul Russell Reed. And Paul, first of all, welcome to the program. Paul's an NLP sales coach, according to his one sheet. So he's like a master NLP guy, and he's going to be NLPing us to death here. I mean, he's just going to tell us everything in the world that could possibly be known about NLP. Oh, yes, you're right. You're right. Mm-hmm. You're right. Yep. So take that one back. But Paul, thanks for joining us on the program and being willing to share your expertise and knowledge and have a good time with us.
Excellent. Remember, though, Walt, that NLP is a do-with process, not a do-to process. So Whatever we do, and we will do and journey hand in hand.
Sounds good. I like the approach. So for those listeners who are not really up on what NLP is, and frankly, my own knowledge is rather limited, let's just do a quick overview what neuro-linguistic programming is all about.
All right, so let's break it down. Neuro-linguistic programming. Neuro is mind. Linguistic is language. And, of course, programming is programming. There's nothing special about that word. And so it's how the mind uses language to program or execute default programs that you process your daily life through. So whether it be emotion or regimentation or reflection or what you think when someone says A, you think of B. So it could be values, it could be strategies, it could be execution of whatever it is that your mind thinks when an event happens. Okay. And NLP is the study of and modeling of excellence. And so in its inception, in its early years, they took the best of processes in therapy, in sales, in business practice, in psychiatry and psychology, and move that together to develop a series of foundational principles, and that led to a trail of techniques. And we use those techniques to quickly and permanently overcome negative emotions, limiting beliefs, limiting decisions, and put in new programming based on where you're at in your life now versus those foundational programs that you generally establish when you were a child, that imprinting period from, let's say, birth to 7 years old.
Okay. That's a pretty comprehensive description of it, I should say. I have to admit, my only real contact with NLP was back in the 1980s listening to Tony Robbins tapes. Mm-hmm. Because he was obviously a big proponent of it. And I walked away from Tony at that point. Not that I dislike Tony. I don't mean that in the way that I'm saying it. I walked away from those tapes saying to myself, well, it all sounds really good. I'm really not sure how to put that into practice.
Well, law of attraction is very similar to, there are some parallel things with NLP. Now, in that the foundation of law of attraction is thoughts become things, right? And, the old Earl Nightingale of the late 50s and early 60s said you become what you think about.
Yes.
And in Matthew, in the Bible, it's in Proverbs where it says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Mm-hmm. Yep. So all these old guiding principles of you we used to see the posters in grade school that said you are what you eat. Well, you are because those chemicals came into your body and produced the body that you walk in now. But the results of your life are, or the outcomes of your life are the results of what you thought and how you executed upon those thoughts up to now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm still stuck with my original thought from back then, which was I don't know what to do with it. I mean, it sounds really interesting. It certainly parallels what we talk about with law of attraction. I just had the feeling that, especially with Tony, because Tony Robbins was very much of a take action kind of guy. Okay, here's the knowledge, here's the information. Now really apply it, and that's where I kind of got stuck because, all right, apply it how? What should I do with it?
Right. Well, let's talk about in my coaching practice. Okay. In order for you, the things that hold you back are mostly internal, right? The things that are so that's going to be limiting decisions, limiting beliefs, negative emotions.
Sure.
Generally, the two biggies are anger and fear. Fear goes into fear and anxiety. And then there's hurt, guilt, sadness, regret, things like that. If you can, and usually as you go through life, you have events that shape how you think about those things and how you program those things and what you do. The problem is all of us are over a certain age now, but we're still using the same programming that we did when we were 4 or 5 or 6 years old.
This is true.
And in order to reset that programming, it usually takes a group of techniques. And so when I work with a client, I usually work with them for a 90-day period. We will simultaneously remove the negative and install the positive, so that in and of itself will create momentum.
Okay.
And
so when you're talking about removing negative, installing positive, I mean, I usually try to avoid the use of the words positive and negative and think in terms of preferred or not preferred, just because positive and negative can have some confusing aspects to them. But positive and negative we can work with for today. So when you're removing negative and putting in positive, it sounds like what you're saying is if there are programs going on in the background that don't really serve my best interests, and I really would like to get them out of the way so that I can start, like you talked about, removing some of these resistance points and blocks that are in the way, then okay, yeah, I can see where I want to remove them and replace them with something that works more toward my benefit, which we're calling the positive.
Sure. Exactly. Let's take relationships. I saw that you have relationship Wednesdays okay. Well, let's think about emotional baggage from previous relationships, right? If I've had all of these experiences that tended to not go like I wanted, and now I'm in a new relationship and there's some trigger point that reminds me of all this past stuff, I'm going to react bringing all that with me, right?
Right.
You remember in old school days when someone got married, they'd tie string with empty tin cans on the back of the just married car. Okay. And all of that, as they drive away, it's clanging and making noise and stuff. And I think about that old programming and baggage as all those tin cans of anger or fear or anxiety or regret or sadness or relationship baggage coming along with you, in that it's clanging along with what's happening now. So I'm mad about what's happening right here. Well, my old boyfriend or girlfriend did this then, and then the previous one did this, and then my dad did that, and my sister was an asshole, and then all this other stuff. And I brought all of this stuff with me when really I just need to deal with this right here, right? So if I read,
I'm chuckling as you're saying this because I actually had an experience with exactly what you're talking about at my wedding. And the experience was that somebody, I don't know who it was, somebody set up our car with the tin cans behind it, and I spotted it. And I didn't want to go through all that nonsense. So I very meticulously went through and removed all those little obstructions that are going to be in the way. And it was almost like I was metaphorically doing what you're talking about. I was going
exactly.
back, getting rid of those old programs before my wife and I could drive off into the sunset.
Right. Because you wanted just to deal with what's in your hand, as
Exactly.
opposed to everything else that you brought along with you.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
what we do is, we use visualization, kind of a light hypnosis, a series of techniques to remove the anger, fear, whatever it is that you're having to deal with, and give you a new perspective based on your mature self now.
Mm-hmm.
And what you would prefer, because if you were going to set a program about how you deal with anger is a valuable emotion, but it's also the most worthless.
Okay? How do you figure that?
Because if you bring all of the anger with you based on everything that's happened in the past to today, it's stacked and stacked and stacked, when really I may be angry. I was working with a client this morning, and he, his sister-in-law's son, so his nephew, was kind of a little jerk. All right. And he gets angry, and we worked on anger because it wasn't just the anger at the little boy. It's the anger at all the other things that bothered him that triggered when he got angry. He brought against this little 4-year-old. And I'm going like, let's just look back at that. Does that really bring any value to what you were feeling? If you brought all those other things, when you could just take care of what's in your hand and go, all right, he's just being 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're very good at that too.
And it's like, I'm a grandfather now. So I've got a 2.5-year-old little tyrant, and she is wonderful, beautiful. But when she gets determined, it's on until she works it out in her head that she's not going to be mad anymore. Well, her mom and dad, they get so wound up that their little 2.5-year-old's being a 2.5-year-old. And I'm just going like, okay, just wait. Just let it work itself out. You don't have to give her anything. You don't have to appease her. Just let her work her own self out. And when, now you can just say, okay, are you through? And she says, yep, I'm through. And then she's, but as you're going through life now, when something triggers, let's say anger, bringing all that other stuff, processing as a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old, has no value now. It's just bringing all the other stuff with you. Now, if someone wrongs you, you can get angry at the moment because it's a natural emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is the most powerful. But as your mature self, instead of bringing all the baggage with you, why don't you just say, okay, here's how this bothered me, or this is how I feel wrong by what you did or what you said. Otherwise, you're going to add that onto the stack of cans running behind the car of your life.
Okay. So, all right. I think I have a grasp of what we're talking about here. So, basically, as we become what here on the program we like to call conscious creators or deliberate creators, growing in our ability to manifest what we want in our lives, we deal with a number of personally placed blocks. In many cases, we didn't even know we placed them. In some cases, there's stuff that go back decades or even past lives, whatever. But there's stuff that's in the way, and there are a number of different techniques and so forth for dealing with them. Sometimes they can be pretty sticky. They don't go away very easily. And it sounds like that's really what NLP is trying to address. It's the sticky ones, the ones that are not really easy to get rid of.
Well, it could be anything. Okay. Let's say you're trying to figure out a new way to process anger. And I have a client that I'm working with, he didn't want to get rid of his anger because he felt it motivated him. He felt that being in the situation that he was in created a sense of momentum and motivation because he was mad about where he was. All right. It was a family situation that he wanted to get out of. But in the end, when we removed the anger and gave him the opportunity to motivate through other means, his whole dynamic changed and his perspective on his family changed because he had given them power. They didn't know, they had no idea that he was in this situation. And I'm like, why are you giving people power that they didn't ask for, they're not aware of, and you're mad at them because of that? What does that do to this relationship?
And there must have been some sort of payoff for him to continue that pattern.
Well, there was, because it validated him staying stuck where he was. Mm-hmm. So he stayed inside his comfort zone. All right. And, we talk about the comfort zone, the fear zone, the learning zone, and the growth zone. But usually when I work with a client I don't push them out of their comfort zone into the fear zone. I make the comfort zone smaller and the fear zone bigger so that now wherever they were standing, now they're going to have to do something. So they're either going to have to become smaller or become more. And my job as coach is to help them become more. Because staying where they're at is no longer an option.
A lot of people want to try to stay in that comfort zone. They're comfortable there. That's why they call it a comfort zone. They feel comfortable there. Even
Absolutely.
if it's not necessarily all that comfortable from other people's perspective, from their perspective, it's comfortable.
Absolutely. And he recognized that he wanted to make more money. Okay. And he had kept bumping against this ceiling of money. Mm-hmm. Right. And he kept blaming the family situation where he created, and the family didn't do that. The family business. So he created that and he gave them all this power. Well, once we worked with that, gave him other ways he actually distanced himself from the family. And now they're coming to him asking for his advice and help because he stepped up in a leadership role. And they're a huge dynamic shift for his life because he processed anger differently.
It's interesting the way you're describing this because the term NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming, but in a sense, it really sounds like you're talking about neuro-linguistic deprogramming.
It's deprogramming and reprogramming. So you're getting rid of the old program and installing a new program based on one that serves you.
Is it a case where if you remove one and put in another that they don't necessarily have to be related to each other, or do there have to be ties between them?
No, they don't have to be ties between them. In fact, it doesn't have to, anger doesn't have to be traumatic. A lot of times when I talk to someone and we're working on in a way to remove a negative emotion, I ask us, is it okay with your unconscious mind to remove this negative fear and for your conscious mind to be aware of it? Okay. And then we go through that process and then we say something like that. What does your unconscious mind need to learn from this foundational programming event, the learning of which will remove the subsequent fear or anger or negative emotion up to now? And it has to be about you, has to be about your future, and it has to be positive. So if I'm going to say somewhere, I don't even not even know the conscious event. My unconscious mind knows it because it remembers everything, right? All right. So let's say this angering event, I become aware that at 5 or 6 or 7 years old or 10 years old, usually they'll say some age. At what age were you? Was it before, during, or after your birth? Because I've had clients where it happened in the womb that created anger. I've had clients that their family legacy was anger.
Mm.
That was the gift. I mean, it was built into their family DNA. So they may heard a story about a grandfather who was wronged in some way, and the whole family's still pissed off. Okay. And it had nothing to do with my client, but we brought that along. Is it okay with your unconscious mind? Well, yeah, it's okay with my unconscious mind. I'm going to install some new, because the number one purpose of the unconscious mind is to protect the body. And in that protection, it's going to use all the information I have now with my mature self, with my experiences and my history and my sense of right and wrong and my sense of dynamism and, that I'm trying to bring joy to life and the world and my existence. It's going to use that to default program instead of what my childless self said or my family legacy said. So the ship will right itself because its number one process is to protect the body. So when it's not installing a program, most people understand the balance of right and wrong, and so they'll install some positive program. So when I say, what does your unconscious mind need to learn? Tell I'm 56. What does your 56-year-old self need to say to your 7-year-old self or your 6-year-old self that's about your future, that's about you, and is positive? And 9 times out of 10, the person will say, it's going to be okay.
I was just going to say that. That's crazy.
This was just a moment in time. It doesn't matter. Later in life, you're going to be freaking awesome.
Now, that's always an interesting exercise to do, to imagine that you're having a conversation with that younger self. What would you say to them? And that's the answer that comes out.
That is the answer. And so many of my clients is, it's going to be okay. Well, yeah, because it is just a moment in time. And when you're dealing with the thing now, the anger now, you go, it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter. You're going to be awesome in the future. It's just a moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
So what you really learned is all of those things. And I do a visualization along the process, and we can go, we've got time. We can go through this if you want. That's not me.
Well, what I'd like to do is get a clearer idea of what, for lack of a better word, what technique
Sure.
is the preferred way to deal with this. Because I've had people demonstrate NLP techniques of their own to me, and the common thread that I've seen in them is that they are, at least the ones I ran into, they were always touch-based, physical-based. In other words, let's create a sensation, let's associate to that sensation, and let's use that as a way to replace an old program. Is that similar to what you do?
Yeah, and when I'm in a person's physical space and I want to anchor things, and we're working close proximity, usually let's say I want to get someone to change when they think of execution of a task where they normally would procrastinate. I'm going to anchor procrastination to automatically trigger motivation.
And let's define what anchoring is, just for people who aren't really clear, because that has a very specific meaning, I believe, in NLP.
Yeah, and that would be touching you. So let's say I'm going to use my knuckle, okay, or the knuckles on my hand. So this right here, the first knuckle is going to represent procrastination, and then I'm going to look at awareness, and then I'm going to look at realignment, and then I'm going to be motivated, right? And so in that anchoring process, if I'm now thinking, all right, I've got to get the laundry done. Oh, I don't want to do the laundry. It sucks, it's no fun. And. What if when you thought about something where you normally had said, I'm going to procrastinate, you change that programming, change that anchoring, you go boop, and then you're going to go, all right, I'm going to really focus on procrastination. And then I'm going to leave procrastination, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to analyze. And then as I analyze and I leave analysis, I come over to realignment. And now that I'm realigning, I'm coming off that one, and now I'm going to motivate. And I go get the laundry done or whatever it is. Okay. You will get so good at this practice that you can just touch one thing and it goes boop, 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 boop.
Basically, it's basically a way of just you reinforce a touch point over and over and over again. And as you do that, it becomes a stronger and stronger association over time.
Right. Exactly. And, if you, usually the one that holds people back the most is fear. And you get grounded in fear. So what is your innate ancient self do? You're either fight or flight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Or you freeze.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what a lot of people do is they freeze. If I'm going to think about becoming more, I may think of all those processes where I'm going to do things. I mean, when, Daniel's a marketer and he's probably had funnels built for him. And you think about all the different processes that are required to build a funnel, a sales funnel. Oh my God, it's crazy.
It could be overwhelming.
But it gets, completely overwhelming. So boom, you go, your thing is, I'm going to think about this. Oh, my programming says I'm going to overwhelm. And what do you do when you're overwhelmed? Nothing.
I take a walk, but I mean, I won't mess up the point.
Yeah. You escape, right? But once you force yourself through all the processes of aligning the email sequences and then the response, and this takes you to this page and this takes you to that page, and then you get your payment portal connected to your funnel and all the little pieces. Once you've done all that, you look back on that and you're not overwhelmed anymore. Okay. And so that fear that you feel and that anxiety you feel, well, anxiety is just fear about a future event, correct?
Mm-hmm.
True.
Right. But anxiety is your unconscious mind telling you to focus on what you really want. So it not only can stagnate you, it can give you the key to overcoming.
Talk about that for a moment. How is it a key, and what does that key lead to?
Okay. Well, let's say everybody here has had financial difficulty in some point in their life, right?
Okay.
Worrying about where the rent came from. No, Alex?
No, sorry.
Okay. Well, you go away now.
Okay. Good day, sir.
Everyone here's had some fear about some future event, right? They've been anxious about it. They've anxiety about it. They worry about it, So, okay. But now that once that thing is over, are you still anxious about it? Once you paid the rent, are you worried about paying the rent?
I still do.
So that past, you still you're maybe worried about paying the future rent, but
no, I get anxiety even after the thing has been done.
Okay. All right. Then, okay. Well, we don't want to go down, but be glad that the first session's always free. Okay. So if you want to hit me aside, be glad to completely remove that for you. Okay. So
Awesome.
just hit me up. We'll get on the calendar and make that happen. Okay.
Awesome.
Well, 2 years ago you had to pay the rent, right? All right. Are you anxious about paying the rent 2 years ago?
No.
No. So it's not possible to be anxious about an event in your past.
Not rationally, anyway.
No. I mean, and we're hoping to stay in the rational.
We're talking about emotions. I mean, that will inevitably lead in some direction that's not rational, I found.
Yeah. And so, when I work with a client about that, and so your programming says, okay, future event that is of concern, I'm going to get anxious about it. I'm going to worry about it. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to get stressed about it. I'm going to sweat about it. All of those things. But if I help you reprogram your unconscious mind to put yourself as completed that task. So you go out into the future 15 minutes past the event, and then you turn around and look at it in your past. It no longer has any effect, and the anxiety goes away.
It's very similar to what in LOA circles we call pre-paving.
Oh, okay. Well, tell me, perhaps it's very similar.
It's very similar. I mean, pre-paving is essentially creating in your mind a scene, so to speak. It could be a very simple scene, you're shaking hands with somebody, or it could be more complex where there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on. But it's a scene where it includes a desired result. There is an emotional component, and as you're focusing on it, you build up that emotional component in your mind. You kind of play out the scene, and you do that as a way of pre-paving where you want to be or what you want to have happen in the next 15 minutes, hour, 2 hours, 10 days, 5 months, whatever it might be. But you're basically playing out in your mind and imagining an experience before it happens, as a way of programming your mind to believe that experience is going to happen.
Very similar, very similar. When I work with goal setting with clients, I do a practice called timeline work, okay? So in the timeline work, when we set goals, and I worked with Daniel on this, okay? Remember the number line in elementary school that was above the chalkboard and each
Yep.
dot on? Well, imagine that you have a timeline of your life, and it's very similar. Every event that you can remember, your unconscious mind can remember, is a node on that timeline, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
All right. Your unconscious mind can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It has no concept of now. So if we visualize or pave a big goal that would realign your life and have the most positive benefit and effect, and visualize that in a way as if now, so you're associated into the completion of the goal, whatever the trigger is. I mean, you got the check, you got the deposit in your bank account, you got in the car, you're at the vacation, whatever that is, and you really visualize that, and you put everything that you are into that goal, and then take that picture and set that on your timeline. And let it drop into your timeline, and you give that energy, and you're looking at that. I always say, and I want you to, and then it becomes a blue light, so that you can always see where you are. And the blue light is always in your future. And once we've set that on your timeline in the appropriate way, all the other events between now and the goal realign themselves to achieve the goal, because the unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between now and the goal being achieved. It just understands that when we get to this point in time, the goal is achieved.
Right. And it can't really tell the difference between what you're playing out in your mind and what you're experiencing.
Right.
They're both processing through the same neural pathways.
Right. And you've programmed that goal into the timeline of your life. And so if you remove the tin cans and learn to motivate and accelerate, not be anxious, what could you achieve?
Oh, God, yeah. There's no limit.
I'm working
imagination, I guess, if there's a limit.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked with did a Motivation Monday series with a group of real estate investors.
Mm-hmm.
And many of them come back to me and said, hey, I'm stuck here. I've made X amount of money. There's no reason I can't make more, but I'm stuck. One person was using anger as a motivation, and that actually had kept him stuck. He thought it motivated him, but he kept focusing on the wall, and he could not go any farther. So there's a concept in NLP called towards and away. And you want to focus on what you want, not focus on being away from the undesired state.
Yeah, that's an important distinction.
All right. So if I am constantly focused on poverty, I can get to a certain point, but I'm always in my unconscious mind looking at poverty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So what if you and I work together and we imagine you, when you think of poverty, you think of it behind you instead of in front of you.
Right.
And we're going to spin you around. We're going to disassociate. We're going to manipulate your body in time and space, and you're going to do this. Okay. We're floating above you and you're staring at poverty wall, and you can get a certain level of income, but you can't get any farther because once you've achieved not poverty, even though you're focused on it, you win. But that's as far as poverty will let you go.
Mm-hmm. That has its own limit built in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So this client, was stuck. He kept bouncing up against $120,000, $130,000 a year, working his eyeballs out, It should have, but he kept focusing on not being poor. Well, in his mind, $120,000, $130,000, he wasn't poor anymore. So he'd achieved his goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2 sessions, 2 weeks apart, he's now on the path to make $400,000
Good for him.
Very, very
by
cool.
the end of this year.
Nice.
Really good.
Okay. Because we just changed his perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Now poverty is behind him. He's looking at abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And not that money is everything, guys, but
No.
It is a measure of the achievements that you can create through your creativity and your blessings and your talents and your passions, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why we work on developing these techniques and these skills, new skill sets and so forth, so that we can achieve the kinds of goals we want, whatever they might be, whether they're
whatever
money,
they are,
relationship, or health, or whatever else. Doesn't make any difference what they are.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the beautiful thing is, there are so many. Life is so complex now. There's so many things bombarding us constantly that it's so hard to say, okay, it's actually a lot simpler than that. If I change how I think and I change my internal state,
Mm-hmm.
I can change my outcome.
That's true. Yeah. Very good. I have a question to ask you based on something I've been experimenting with since our previous guest. And Dan, I can see now why you were saying on Tuesday that these two kind of work together. They actually do, one feeds into the other. The guest we had on Tuesday, her name is Dr. Ann Jensen, and she was telling us about a method that she's taught for the last 15, 20 years called Heart Speak, in which she encourages clients to release old anger and so forth that's been hanging around by getting really, really angry about it until you can let go of it.
Yep.
And I thought about that after we completed that podcast. It just kind of stuck in my mind for a bit, the conversation and that concept. And I said to myself, well, according to what Dr. Ann said, and it certainly makes sense to me, that should really work with any emotion. So I reasoned, what would happen if I were to try to apply the same approach to joy, to happiness, to like the highest vibration stuff? So I actually woke up yesterday morning and decided to start a new experimental daily process just to see what would happen. I had no goal in mind. I wasn't trying to, free up some past program or something. I just wanted to see what would happen. What kind of
Sure.
experience I'd have. So I kind of mirrored what she talked about with anger and fear and so forth, and did the same thing with joy. I got in front of my mirror and I just reached for the best feeling thing I could go for, and I did it intently. Really, really intently, and I'm jumping up and down, and I'm shaking my arm. Yeah. And then I could do that for about 10 seconds, and I need another one, so I grab another one, and I did that one for another 10 seconds. I kept doing this until I had done it for a full minute, at which point I collapsed in the chair from exhaustion because I wasn't used to exerting all that emotional power
Right.
on the high level emotions.
Exactly.
But it was a really interesting experiment and an experience, because what I found for the rest of that day was yesterday, Wednesday. For the rest of that day, first of all, for the next half hour or so, I was buzzing. I had such a high vibration feeling going on. And I said, whoa, this is really intense. For the rest of the day, I found that my ability to focus on the task at hand was tremendously increased. I mean, I was able to achieve levels of focus yesterday that I hadn't achieved literally in years just by doing that.
Nice.
And then I said to myself, well, okay, this is pretty cool. I wonder what happens if I start doing this every single morning. So this morning I got up, did it again, and not terribly surprising. On an emotional level, it was surprising. On an intellectual level, it was not surprising. But I kind of surprised myself that yesterday I had to really fight to get to 1 minute. Today I flew through a minute. I got to a minute and a half. I was like, whoa, that was easy. I had this big surge that come through. So that's like a great big preamble to ask one very simple question, and that is, what is the role, in your view, in NLP, where powerful emotion is concerned, both positive and negative?
All right. Well, I use a technique called the ring of power for that.
Okay.
And Daniel's been over this, and this. All right. This is a very simple concept, and Walt, we'll go back to what you already experienced. You were able to create these emotions because you had already experienced them, right?
Yeah.
You knew what joy was. You knew what motivation was. You knew what being on fire emotionally was.
Yeah.
Correct? All right. And the ring of power technique is very similar to that. So let's just go through the process. All right. We'll take about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay. But anybody who's watching can use this. They can go through this process and get exactly what you're talking about. Okay. All right. And so when, I'm going to talk about a concept called association. All right. And association means that you are going to a time in your life where you experienced a certain thing as if it's happening now. You're looking through your own eyes. You're hearing what you heard. You're seeing what you saw, and you're feeling what you felt. Okay. And in each situation where I talk about associating into a particular emotion, I want you to think about really clarifying what is happening in front of you at that time. Okay. Make the colors brighter, make the smells more beautiful, make the sounds more pleasing, and make the feelings rise up in you. Okay. So I want you to recall a time. So the ring of power is a ring of electricity. It is a ring of fire. It's a ring of energy. For however your ring is, it can be as small as putting on your finger, a bracelet, a halo, a necklace, a talisman. You can walk into it. You can step into it. You can move it. You can put it over your head. All right. So for every one of you, create this ring of power. For me, it's kind of white little crackly electricity. For some people, it may be lava. It may be smoke. It may be just bolts of lightning, whatever it is. So I want you to think about and manifest your ring. All right. And I want you to make it about 2 feet across and put it in front of you there on the floor. All right. If we were in a room doing this technique together, I would say, all right, put it on the floor because we're going to step into the ring. But just imagine yourself being able to step in the ring. So it's right in front of you if you step inside it. Now, the ring is you, and you are the ring because you created it. You control it. You have power over it, and you're the one who is connected to it. Make sense?
Sure.
All right. So I want you're stepping outside of the ring, you're looking at it, and I want you to feel this little tingly energy. Can you feel that? Just a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Now I want you to recall a time when you were totally motivated. You were pumped up. You were on fire. I can't wait to get on the floor. I'm waking up. I'm going to touch the floor and my energy is going to hit the world and it's going to be beautiful and fantastic. Can you recall a time when you were totally motivated? Does everybody have that time?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So I want you to go think about that time. Go down into your body as if it's happening now. Look through your own eyes. See what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt when you were totally, totally motivated and step into your ring. And I want you to share that power with the ring, and the ring gives that energy and motivation back to you. I want you to intensify that and let it grow and let it grow and let it rise up in you and be motivated. And thank God, yes. All right. And as that rises and just as it peaks, I want you to step out of the ring. All right.
Okay.
Now I want you to think of a time when you felt totally powerful. You were in control. You had this. It was awesome. I'm the one who has the clarity. I'm the one who has the authority. I am powerful today. I can manifest whatever I want. I can create whatever I want. I know the rules. I know how to play this. I know my plan. I know my strategy. I am powerful. Does everybody have a time?
Yes.
All right. So I want you to go back into that time and think about that power. Think about how satisfying that is, how in control you were, how positive you were. And I want you to rise that feeling up and feel what you felt and double that energy and double that feeling of power and step into the ring. And I want you to give that power to the ring and let the ring give the power and motivation back to you. And let that rise up in you and let that grow and let that manifest and let that energy and connectedness to the ring be one with you. And as that rises and peaks, step out of the ring. Now I want you to recall a time when you totally loved. It could be a friend. It could be a lover. It could be a child, a grandchild, a spouse, a parent. Everything was beautiful. You just knew based on what that person portrayed to you that you were special and you were precious and that you were loved at that moment. Does everybody have a time?
Yes.
All right. I want you to think about that time. Go back into that beautiful time and see what you saw and hear what you heard and feel what you felt when you were totally loved. And step into the ring. And I want you to grow that feeling and give that love to the ring and add that to the ring, and it gets more intense and more powerful. That ring gives the power back to you. You give the power to the ring. The ring gives the motivation back to you. You give the motivation back to the ring with that love, and it grows and it grows and it grows all the way as it peaks. Step out of the ring. Okay, now I want you to think of a time where you could have it all. You could have whatever you wanted. A time where you knew you couldn't fail. You could have everything that you wanted. Even if it's something that you haven't experienced, can you imagine a time where you could have everything that you wanted? You with me? Alex?
This is one of those points where I get a little bit confused myself, just because it's always a little bit more challenging to imagine something that you haven't experienced. But I follow where you're going, so I'm with you.
So just quickly think about the.
I enjoyed a little top up.
I'm sorry, what?
I enjoyed a little top up on my rings.
So think about what it would feel like if you were, even if it's a future event, you've achieved your big goal that's realigned your entire life. Everything with the achievement of this goal realigns, because all other parts of your life are better because you achieve this goal. Can you imagine that?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. So I want you to step into that time as if it's happening now. And whatever it is that tells you you got that you reached that big goal, that you achieved it, and now all things are possible. I want you to step in there and see what you're going to see, and hear what you're going to hear when that happens, and feel what you're going to feel. That sense of achievement, that sense of passion, that sense of grace that's going to happen when you achieve the big goal and step into the ring. And I want you to give that achievement, that clarity, that authority to the ring, and let it give that feeling back to you. And then give that love to the ring, and the ring gives the love back to you. Give that power to the ring, and the ring gives the power back to you. Give that motivation to the ring, and the ring gives the motivation back to you. And let that grow in you and grow and peak. And as it peaks, step out of the ring. Look how powerful that ring is. And that ring is you. That ring is everything that you are. How beautiful you are that you manifested that. And lastly, I want you to recall a time where you were really energetic. You had a ton of energy. You really felt on fire. Couldn't wait. So you were motivated. You did it. Yes, I'm going to do this. That's awesome. Does everybody have a time?
Yes.
All right. So I want you to really go into that moment when you had a ton of energy. You felt great. It was just fantastic how much energy you had, and you just couldn't contain yourself. And I want you to step into the ring and give that even more energy to the ring. And along with that achievement and that clarity and that authority and that love, and let it come back to you and give it back, and the power and the motivation, and let all those feelings rise up. And as that peaks, step out of the ring. Now I want you to look at the ring and hold it in front of you guys, just like this. How amazing you are, because the ring is you and you are the ring. And look at the shape and the color and feel all those good feelings. And what would it say to you as a person if it could speak? How amazing you are. How beautiful you are. What an incredible being you are. You love the energy. You could have it all. You're fired up. And I want you to set the ring down and step inside one more time. And you can use that ring anytime. You can step into it. Let's say you're going to walk into a room and meet some new people that you're looking to impress. Put the ring in front of you and step through that. And you can use multiple rings. Step through it and step through it and step through it. You can do it while you're driving. Every time you pass a light, boom, through the ring. Yes. 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 And let it stack and let it anchor.
Yeah, essentially, we built up an NLP talisman, I guess I would call it.
Yep.
Something that we can draw upon anytime we need to get into that better feeling place.
Yep.
And just relive it, because we've already built it up. It's already achieved a certain degree of momentum, and every time we go back in, it'll achieve more momentum and become stronger and more powerful.
Exactly. And so the ring is just a representation that reminds your unconscious mind of your personal awesomeness.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that you step into the ring, walk through the ring, put the ring on your hand, use it as a halo, use it as a talisman.
Right.
Every time you manifest your ring, it reminds your unconscious mind of your inner grace, your inner incredible self, your inner motivation. Because only awesomeness can create all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how beautiful you are. And how beautiful all of us are.
No kidding. Factual. Yeah. Really good.
I love it.
Thank you for leading us through that.
Well,
I have a couple questions for you from listeners in our YouTube live stream, from Josie, actually. 2 questions. She says, first, have you heard of Ho'oponopono?
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, what are your thoughts about maintaining a healthy mental diet?
Oh man. Healthy mental diet. Well, I'm not sure exactly what that means. Maybe she comment, but yes, I have heard of, and I'm always mispronounced the word hopa ono or ohona.
It goes on and
there's
on.
some H's. There's only 13 letters in the Hawaiian alphabet, so that's why the words are so long. I do remember the huma huma nupa nupa apua that from the song.
Well
it's
done.
a fish. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, I'm very aware of that. In the goal setting technique, we do what's called a ha breath to breathe life into that image. I could have done that with the ring. I want, we step around out of the ring and I want you to breathe 4 ha breaths. It's a little bit woo woo. And, when a person does this for the first time, you guys are all a little bit woo-woo too, so that's probably pretty
we're
cool.
A lot more than a little. We're very woo-woo, and we're proud of it.
But I work with kind of a stoic, business-like male to get them to do, all right, I want you to put 4 ha breaths into this, and I explain what that is, and we go, ha, and they're going, that's outside of my norm there, brother.
They're going, nah.
That's it. Nah. But yes. And there are lots of techniques that cross over in that discipline with NLP and, in a lot of different techniques. I mean, and I think even your previous guest talking about get as mad as you want. Well, perhaps that is very similar because what you're doing is you're manifesting anger now in a way that you would program it now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that is some sort of, the result is you've reprogrammed it a little bit. So
sure.
There you go.
Very good. All right. Hey, before we part company, I want to make sure that I remind people to become subscribers. And I'm going to kind of put it out there a little bit and say, we're going to skip the normal message about going to the website to subscribe because we're going to assume by the time most people hear this, the app is going to be out there. So what you want to do is you want to go to, and this actually applies to beyond the next 24 hours, you want to actually go to the Play Store on an Android phone or to the App Store on an iPhone and just do a search for LOA Today and download the app. And you'll be able to play all of our episodes right there on the app. It's going to be so cool. It's going to be great. Also, you want to check us out on YouTube. That's where Alex comes in because she does the YouTube thing better than I do. So, Alex, take it away.
So when you go to YouTube, search LOA Today podcast videos and look for our smiling faces. Once you see us, click down below to the red subscribe button. Next to the red subscribe button, there's a little silver bell. Make sure you click all so you will always be notified when we are live.
And signing done in the background by Daniel for those who couldn't see it, but we were enjoying it. I'm curious, Daniel. I don't think that was American Sign. What sign language was that? Daniel Sign, yeah.
I knew it.
That works. Good stuff. So, Paul, before we part company with you too, give people an idea how to reach out to Paul Russell Reed. Where do they find you? I imagine you've got, a website, books, something like that. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, they can go to paulrussellreed@me.com. If somebody wanted to email me. I do have a YouTube channel of my own. Just look for Paul Reed and look for my smiling face. You can find me on Facebook, or if anyone is in sales, they can go look for the high ticket selling solution Facebook group, the high ticket selling solution Facebook group. We didn't even talk about sales, and that's my actually expertise. So,
and I can attest to that. I did. I was one of the beta testers for a program that Paul was just putting together. That's how it actually ended up being connected. And 28 grand.
What?
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Very nice.
Just because I just stepped up into doing some high ticket offers, and I applied. I hadn't even learned the full stuff, just the changes in approach that Paul gave from the program. 1 week, 28 grand.
If you could point to One thing that you picked up from that program that you think made the biggest difference. What was the one thing that made the biggest difference?
It was that I'm not selling anything. I'm actually empowering people to break free and liberate them from their pain. Because I don't sell anything I don't believe in. I don't offer any services that I don't believe in. I don't offer anything in any of my businesses that doesn't add to people's lives. So I'm in integrity in what I'm delivering, but just making that step beyond that I'm liberating them from the space of pain. And I'm doing them a service by creating a space for them to exchange energy with me. That just changed the game.
I can imagine that there are probably people listening to the program. I mean, a lot of people these days, but especially among our listeners, toy with the idea or even venture into creative ventures, creating little businesses and so forth. And Paul, I imagine that would be a perfect kind of niche for what you do as well. I mean, you can basically help anybody who's trying to make a financial breakthrough, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Perhaps you guys would invite me back and we can actually talk about selling at some point.
Okay. That sounds good. We will take you up on that. Just have to figure out when we're going to schedule it. That's all, but we'll get it done.
There you go.
I mean, like I said, I did that program with Paul. I think it kind of, when I get the ping to invite someone on the show, and I really feel Paul's really added to everyone that's listened in today. I also enjoyed having a top up on my Ring of Fire, which I'm going to start doing every morning. I think when I do my mirror work, I might even do my mirror work in my Ring of Fire.
Oh, that's what.
And Josie, this is Ho'oponopono before and after. But yeah, Paul's stuff is really powerful. We're in discussions about including him. I'm relaunching my Beyond Success Business Owners Program for 2020, and we're in talks about Paul doing a portion on that. It's got some really powerful stuff, and we did the emotions, we've done the mind. I think
it's a very good combination. In fact, what you were describing just then, Daniel, about doing all the different processes together, Cindy calls that method stacking or procedure stacking, something like that, and process stacking. And when you stack them together, oh my God, it isn't additive. It's multiplying.
Yeah, it's an exponent, not a multiplier.
Yeah.
I'm already doing when I do my there's a breathing technique my friend gave me to do to really charge up. I'm already doing Ho'oponopono with that. So I'm going to do that in the Ring of Fire, run the Ho'oponopono narrative in the back while I'm doing my mirror work in my Ring of Fire and doing the breath work. Ooh.
Look at you go.
You're going to burst into flame is what's going to happen.
I'm telling you.
He spontaneously combust. All right,
very cool stuff.
All right,
well, thank you, Paul, once again. We appreciate you coming on the program and sharing your insights, and we will have you back at some point. But we appreciate what you did. That was great, giving us a good. I feel like I have a much better understanding of NLP than I had before. So
good, excellent.
Appreciate that. Thank you, guys. Thank you, live streamers. Thank you to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.